All right. Emerging air issues. For those of you all who know Jackie, you know she jumps into this issue with a passion and excitement like no one else. So I myself more so like I treat this issue like I pick around this issue maybe like a 4-year-old picks at a plate of vegetables. So I really want to just lower the expectation. I'm just going to essentially announce what she was going to, the issues she was talking about, and not really give a presentation. But there is some movement and some new air issues that are coming up on our radar that will cause some big changes, or likely cause some big changes in our air program. And the first one was earlier this month when the EPA came out with their final rule regarding the ozone NACs. Earlier this month on October 1st, EPA came out and with the standard of 70 parts per billion of ozone as a new standard coming down from 75. So they lowered the standard from 75 down to 70. And so obviously that's much more strict. We don't know exactly what the changes to the Texas counties are, but an example would be that if you use recent data for the Dallas-Fort Worth area, that it would have brought in 12 more counties into non-attainment for that region. And so again, that's just using recent data. There is still more data to be analyzed, more monitoring to be done, and other decisions to be made. Population data, census data needs to be updated prior to designating the new counties that fall now under this new threshold. The counties will be designated, the regions will be designated need to be designated by 2017. And so there's a certain amount of time between now and then, that, again, information that they'll be looking at between now and then. So the new non-attainment areas would be designated in 2017. And then in 18 and 19, conformity would be due for those county areas. And those so then the plans will be effective 19 and forward, 2019 and moving forward. So again, just the announcement is that the standard is lower now. The final rule is in effect, although there might be some challenges to that rule that might go on and could possibly change it. Right now, we'll just move forward on the basis that the standard will be lowered, that there will be more counties. I think statewide, we're expecting 20 to 25 new counties to fall under this standard across the state, bringing in certain areas that might include San Antonio and El Paso into non-attainment for ozone. And that we expect that within the next year and a half to 2 years that we will know exactly what those counties are, and then the MPOs and the plans will be made, will conform, and will be changed and analyzed appropriately. So again, essentially on our radar, that's what we're expecting to have happen on that front, and that final rule is in effect. Certainly, I'm not even going to try to entertain questions on the issue, but please contact Jackie if you need further updates and by the way, if you were at the environmental conference, her presentation there was similar to what she was going to do here, so you saw some of that information already if you were there last month. The other issue that's kind of on the radar as well is that back in December, the White House Council on Environmental Quality, they put out draft guidance related to greenhouse gases and climate change. Draft guidance on greenhouse gases and climate change. It's has really potentially high significance in the work that we do in NEPA work. And essentially the guidance came out and said how in the NEPA process do federal agencies need to address greenhouse gases and climate change. And a couple of aspects of that draft guidance stick in my mind. One part was that they proposed a threshold over which a quantitative analysis needed to be done. And the threshold was, I believe, 25 million. Oh, it was an odd unit. It was 25 million something, but it was an odd unit. But essentially, above that, a quantitative analysis would need to be done, and the threshold was kind of soft or kind of iffy. It wasn't strongly supported. And then also the idea that a quantitative analysis would need to be done for projects that might go above that threshold. The idea of what tools do you use to do a quantitative analysis? There's not really across the practice standards to do that kind of analysis. So there are a lot of questions of what happens. And first off, the standard is somewhat arbitrary, and secondly, how do you do the modeling to get the quantitative above that standard? So there are big questions there. Another issue has to do with they talk about upstream and downstream greenhouse gas and climate change impacts. Upstream and downstream. This encompasses a lot more of analysis than what we're used to doing in the NEPA process. And upstream, that would include things like where you got your construction source material from, were there greenhouse gas implications regarding that? Some of your construction equipment would be emissions from construction equipment. Downstream impacts might be how many trees did you remove in your project, and did you lose a greenhouse gas mitigation component by losing vegetation or losing trees? So a calculation there as well. So not just the impacts of your project, but again the upstream or the let's say far-reaching indirect impacts that might affect greenhouse gas emissions associated with your project. And so that really widely expanded the potential for analysis there. And then I guess a big question of ours, and TxDOT did comment on these rules, a big question of ours was just the extent or the significance of your data once you analyze it, once you went through the effort of modeling and or calculating greenhouse gas emissions from your project. What do you say to its significance to the issue of global warming? I mean, again, you're talking at a scale of the Earth, the ultimate cumulative impact analysis here. And so you get these numbers, and then what do you do with them? What do you do with the decision on your project? So maybe in some minuscule way your project contributes to greenhouse gas emissions. Well, then what? You don't know, and maybe you disclose it, but once you start down that path, you certainly open yourself up to a lot of questions in the process. So we and a whole lot of other people had questions on this draft guidance. We don't know where CEQ is going to end up on this, but it could certainly change the way if it goes final in some form that looks similar to the draft. There would be a lot of implications to this. So we'll see where it lands. Again, it's something else that's on our radar, and we'll keep you and the industry apprised of where this lands. Those are the two main issues Jackie was going to cover. Again, I might be able to answer a few questions regarding that issue, but again, I would probably hand it off to Jackie at the time and place that you might be able to reach her, maybe by email or a phone call. So with that, I think I delved into about the level that I needed to, and I'll answer any questions related to that if I can, or anything else. I know it's kind of a futile effort to ask for questions at the end of the session, at the end of the conference, as people are ready to go. But if there are any other questions we can entertain regarding earlier presentations or anything else E and B related, I or maybe some of my staff can try to answer if there are any burning questions out there.